Hello, beautiful. How are you?
Hey, how are you? I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. In your childhood, what was your relationship like with your hair?
I grew up in the 80s. My childhood was in the 80s, just for context. At that time, the popular hairstyle was like the Jerry curl, the leisure curl, or perm. And I had none of those because full processing of hair in my family was not, especially for like, I would say 15 and under was not accepted, I would say. And so I spent a lot of time, or my mom spent a lot of time trying to find ways to do my hair that it was manageable and somewhat stylish, but it was, I had a lot of hair. So it was a lot to contend with. And then the product lines that we have now, we didn't have then. So there wasn't like, people weren't necessarily getting blowouts like that with the flat irons necessarily, as opposed to, we had pressing, but that was it. Then you had to like roll it up with the rollers. The products we had like very basic products. And so we used what we had.
Yeah. So talk a little bit more if you're comfortable. What was the cultural context of why girls under 15 did not use any kind of heat or chemical
So
processing?
culturally, we're from the Caribbean, we're from Jamaica, and so everybody just kind of what we call cane row or cornrow. We braided our hair. We braided it, and we plaited it, however styles, and that's what everybody wore all the time for. I would say durability or longevity, and that was the style. Without extensions, we twisted it, and so it wasn't a thing where we could go get chemicals just did not believe, were raised to believe in the use of chemicals to what we call process the hair, to change it from its natural state to a curl. Jerry curl was like a permanent state, or a perm or relaxer with strong chemicals. It was a lie. It is a lie to change it to a straightened state. And then the belief that use of the chemicals, which we do know to be true, can break or damage your hair. And so we kept it in the most natural state as possible. And so we braided it and twisted it.
So was there religious context? Because I remember growing up as Asian, they were all about straightening their hair because they're trying to. There was this idea of the European standard of beauty that had
Hmm.
infiltrated like
Yeah.
Haiti. But I had friends who were from different parts of the Caribbean who said their family didn't believe in it, and sometimes there was a religious context to it. Was there any of that for you?
Yeah, and I think that is true. It wasn't my experience necessarily in my family, but I think that is true. Like maybe the chemicals, not as a Christian, or you don't do
Right. It's
that.
like no makeup,
No
no like it was,
makeup,
yeah,
very
it was just
fundamentalist.
altering. Yeah.
Yeah. So we weren't, I would say we weren't that traditional. I mean,
Okay.
we could wear pants. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just not,
Yeah.
we weren't that fundamentalist, I would say.
Right. Right.
It
Yeah,
was
maybe
really
that's
more,
like some of the some other
yes,
groups.
yeah,
No
no.
jewelry, no makeup, no
No jewelry,
processing
no
your
makeup,
hair.
no
Right.
TV. After, yeah,
Yeah, no movie. Like
yeah.
there was a lot that went along with it that was about altering your appearance. And then so when you said you grew up in the 80s, were you growing up in Jamaica or the US?
Here in
Okay.
Florida, United
But it
States.
was still Jamaican
Culture,
influences
yeah.
in the, yeah,
Mhm.
culturally. Okay. And then so would you say your relationship with your was negative, positive, or neutral?
I thought it was positive because in Jamaica, people would say you have enough hair. Like you have enough hair. You had a lot of hair. I had a lot of hair, and even though sometimes I hated it because I felt like it was so thick, it was just so thick and it was so extra. Like it was hard to manage, but it was a compliment people would say to you, like, oh, you have enough hair. You have plenty of hair. And I had a lot of it. And so growing up, I felt like my hair was beautiful. I didn't start to feel hair conscious until I became a teenager. I went to school in an all white environment. And so there weren't a lot of other people in my school who had hair like me to compare my hair to. And that was a thing, right? But I didn't become hair conscious or self-conscious until high school, where I went to school with other Black girls who had the hairstyle. So now we're getting into the 90s. So, we have the French rolls and the finger waves and the freeze
Hmm.
curls and all the cuts and the colors. And I'm like, there is no way I'm gonna get this. But eventually I did perm my hair.
Okay. What
Yeah,
year was that?
maybe like 95.
Okay. And what was the reasoning behind that for yourself? How did you rationalize it?
I wanted the style. I wanted the styles. I was at an age where I could work and afford the styles. I was like 15 maybe when I had my first job, and I wanted to fit in. I wanted the styles. I wanted the versatility. I wanted the braids. I wanted the perm. I wanted the control. I wanted the style. I mean, if I couldn't wear the makeup, because I wasn't wearing makeup like that, I wanted to wear the hairstyle. And so when I could work, and make my own money, I could do the things that I wanted to do with my hair.
So you had it professionally done.
Yeah.
What was that like for you when you first had that, the smell of the lye on your scalp, on your hair?
I'd always gone to the hairdresser and I saw the jerry curl. And of course, my mom and my aunts had the jerry curls.
Oh, did they?
So, yeah, they now.
Oh, because they were older. As an adult,
They were older, so they had the jerry curls and the shortcuts with the Marcel iron. Like they had it. And so I was familiar with the process of jerry curl and all the perm. And so when it was my time to do it, I was nervous because I didn't want to get burned and all this other stuff. And I didn't want my hair to fall out. But I wanted the results. I wanted the versatility, having those styles that I could never have because my hair was in its natural state. So I was willing to take the risk. But first it was a leisure curl. And then like a couple years later, leisure curl was like a loose jerry curl. And then it was like the cool person's jerry curl.
What happens to your hair after you start processing it as you described it?
So I didn't experience the hair breakage that a lot of people did. And I think there's just a lot of different theories for that. It's who's doing your hair, how frequently you're doing your hair, and processing it. Sometimes it's the grade of hair, like if you have very thin hair and you're processing it and coloring it and putting a lot of chemicals in it, then
and adding heat
all the time every day, then your hair is going to obviously feel the effects of it. I learned after I went through the phase of the styling and the French rolls and the freeze curls and all that, very quickly that I was like the bob queen. I found some pictures. Somebody sent me some pictures from like 10 years ago, a couple days ago, and I am and forever will be known as the bob queen. Like I will get a shampoo, big rollers like Dominican, like the blowout, like the roller wraps, whatever. And I was the bob queen. So my hair grew because I didn't do much with it. I shampooed it. I would get a relaxer. I would shampoo it, blow dry it, big roller set, wrap it, tie it up, and I left it alone. Moisturize it, left it alone. I left it alone. But I was literally the bob queen. Short bob, long bob, medium bob, swinging bob, heavy on one side bob. I was the bob queen. And so my hair, and I was okay with that. I grew into someone who didn't need a lot of styles.
Yeah, variety in your styles.
Right. I didn't need that. I just wanted to swing. If it wasn't swinging, it wasn't doing nothing. So I was like, I don't care how you get it to swing, grow it or sew it. It needs to swing. And so
tell us more about the swing. Explain it to someone who's listening.
The movement. The swing is the movement. You need your hair to, for me, I needed my hair to move, whether it was blown out or relaxed, because eventually when I moved away from relaxers, it would blow out. So I would just have them shampoo it, blow it out, flat iron it, and it would have I wanted the movement. I wanted when I talked and when I walked, my hair moved, right? It's like I didn't want my hair not to move. I wanted it to sit on my shoulders and hang down. Now my hair grows up.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is it the opposite of what your natural hair did?
It was, yeah, and I loved the look of my hair. I love the fact that it was my hair. I love the fact that I could change the direction of it and it looked full, it looked pretty to me, and it was my hair. It wasn't, fake. It wasn't weave. It was my hair, and I could do all these things with it, And so if I wanted to shampoo it and it would go back to the natural state and I would have an afro, I loved that flexibility.
How long did you have your practice?
Maybe about 8 years.
Okay, 8 years. So then once you start transitioning to natural and blowouts, did you wear your hair out in an afro after you wash it, or was it always in a blowout, straightened state?
It depends. You know, like I didn't always get it shampoo and blown out and flatter because that heat is very high heat, it's like 400 degrees. And so sometimes I would just leave it like what they call flat twisted, right? And I would flat twist my natural hair and then just pull it out and just wear it out natural and so I wouldn't always put the heat in because the heat can be as damaging as the chemicals if you're doing it all the time. You have to leave your, I'm no expert, you have to leave your hair alone to do whatever it's going to do. And so as natural hair became more I would say like visually popular in maybe like late, like maybe like early 2000s, I would say I would wear like flat twists and pull it out, or I would wear like an afro and put it, or I would just braid it back and put it in a head wrap or something like that.
So where are you in your lawyer journey to Esquire when you're doing this, having your hair natural? Are you in law school? This is before law school, after law school?
This is probably mostly after law school. I'm thinking about like the pictures we take in our first year of law school. And I think I know my hair was straight. I don't remember if it was a relaxer or a perm. It was probably, I mean, or a blowout. It's probably a relaxer. It might have been a blowout. It was definitely straight. And that was 2003, 2004.
So you decide to stop relaxing. How much does your law school journey and your law career play a role in your decision about if and how and when you're going to transition back to your natural textured hair?
It does play a role in like interviewing and interning and what people are going to think. If I come in with like a big old afro and a headband, or if I come in with very long braids or cornrows, like I was a cornrow. I went through a phase of my life where I kept a different braid direction of cornrows. And so like, how do you make that look more quote unquote professional? You know, the majority of the people where you work do not have cornrows. They will probably never have cornrows. But how do you make it look a little bit more tapered and corporate?
Yeah, less noticeable really is what we're trying to do.
Less noticeable. Like I mean, my cornrows were long. Like, so they were like, you know, because when I work or internship, I was, you know, not lawyer pie. I was not Journey to Esquire pie. I was, you know, whoever it was. Yeah. And so as long as I had the option of making it straight again, if I did to interview or photograph, I was okay. As long as I had that option. And so locking removed that option, just to kind of like fast forward to where I am in the last 2 or 3 years. Locking removed the option of ever being able to quote unquote make it straight again, right? But locking was something that I always wanted to do. Like for years, I wanted to lock my hair to the point that when people realized that I locked my hair, they didn't think anything of it because I had always worn my hair in like a faux lock style. And people were like, why didn't you just, didn't you always have that? And I'm like, no. And they're like, well, you just seemed like you did because I had kind of adopted this faux lock style and in the crochet / hair faux lock goddess lock extension era of like 2016, 17. And that became really popular. And then I graduated to just lock.
Now, when you made the decision to locking the hair, what were your thoughts about how this will impact your work and showing up at work and your career? And then what stopped you from doing it earlier?
So I will say that to be perfectly honest, I had my supervisor boss at the time was like, you know, you do what you need to do with your hair and everybody else will be okay. And I was like, oh, okay. And I think that is a statement that we need to make to women, just people, but especially women, especially women of color. We need to say like, you need to do whatever you need to do, what's best for your hair, and everybody else will be okay. And then the other thing was that I was told just comments from people that locks were not professional looking. And they were just like braids, so they were not professional looking, but braids had less of a permanence than locking did, right? Nowadays, you can put in locks, take out locks, inner lock, fake lock, crochet lock, whatever. But there was more of a permanence and a commitment to lock. And I just got to a point where I said the professionalism. And so, do I care about my appearance? Yes, I do. But do I care that my appearance makes other people comfortable per se or uncomfortable? I probably don't care about that more than I care about what I love about myself. I love myself with locked hair. I don't know why I didn't do it 10 years ago. And so I just got to a point where I didn't
You care
care what
less.
other people thought
Yes,
more so than what I felt that I wanted to do.
exactly. So when you say other people said it was unprofessional, what roles were these people? Were there lawyers? Were they people who were supervisors, older lawyers, younger people? You don't have to name names, but just in
They weren't colleagues per se. They were just people that I knew that weren't necessarily colleagues or supervisors or in the profession, so to speak. They were just people who had ideas and ideologies, people that I knew, just whether it's a community person or a family member, they just had opinions of what. And some of it is just based on culture. Some of it is based on the time period in which they grew up. And some of it is for Locs specifically, it's what people affiliate with Locs, the hairstyle, Rastafarian culture, dreadlocks and what that meant, and as a sign of rebellion. For some people, that's still their ideology. It's a sign of rebellion. So why would you want to carry yourself like that?
Yeah, someone else in an interview said that Afro was a sign of rebellion. And some people are like, no, I just like the style. I'm not trying to rebel against
And to be
anything.
perfectly honest, in a lot of times there was a sign of, I think it was a sign of freedom and independence and not non-conformism. And I think rebellion has a unique connotation. Rebellion is a target. I am trying to show you versus I am trying to be me. I am trying to free me. I'm trying to feel comfortable with me.
Yeah, that's why this is called Locs, Law, and Liberation.
Yeah,
We're trying to liberate ourselves from racialized notions of professionalism, as Leah Goodrich calls it. And so you feel more free now that you have your locks, is what I'm saying.
Yes, I do.
Has your decision influenced others who are lawyers or maybe professionals regarding their hair choice?
I don't know the answer to that question. And know it has yielded comments from people who don't know what I do for a living. And then when they meet me and they find out what I do for a living, especially like younger people, right? They're like, oh, you're a lawyer and you have locks and you're this and I'm like, yeah, I am.
Yes.
And they're like, well, do you think that? I was like, I absolutely think that. And I do think that we live in a different time.
I
think that growing up in the 80s and 90s, I think it's a totally different time than now. And I think that there is a generation of people who are very committed to showing up as their authentic selves, and their hair is an expression of that. And they are less concerned with what the conformism structure says or green lights. And so they're more committed to being themselves. And I think that that's empowering.
It is empowering. Every cycle, the young generation is doing that, and then they kind of grow up and it changes, right? We have these who have grown their hair long. It's true. And then they get older and they have to cut their hair because they want a job. That's what I remember. I remember people cutting off locks because they're like, to get a job, no one will hire me. I know a lawyer who was told that explicitly: we will not hire you if you have locks.
Yes.
Who graduated the same year I did in 2009, which was, people are shocked. Younger 20-year-olds are shocked to hear that. I'm like, well, it wasn't that long ago. So one of the other trends I noticed that I talk about in the paper is COVID really freed a lot of women to do locks because they couldn't go to the salon and they're trying to figure out how to do my hair, and they said, let me just do locks so I can maintain myself, etc. Is that around the time you started yours during COVID?
Yes. Yeah, it was after COVID, maybe coming out of COVID, I would say. But yes, absolutely.
So tell me how that might have helped facilitate the transition for you.
I think that I got to a point where I was like, I might as well do what I want, what I've been wanting to do. I think I had a lot more time to study how to go about doing it. And then I think for me, a lot of it also that, my lifestyle changed, my time. I mean, doing hair is time, getting hair done is time. Our hair costs a lot of money to do maintain. If you're wearing extensions, you got to buy the extension. You don't want to buy cheap hair, and it costs. And so I started to look at the cost effective nature of doing locks and things that I could do for myself. And so all of those things played a role. I have a daughter, I pay to get her hair done. And I'm like, this is just too much money and too much time. And I also just looked at what I want and the fact that what made me feel beautiful. And I started to identify how I loved myself, how I looked at myself with my hair locked versus with weave. And I hated every bit of weave that I tried. At that, I just got to a point of like internal resistance. Like, I don't want another sew-in. I don't want another crochet. I don't want another extension. I just want to touch my hair. That's it.
So are you team DIY or you go to a professional to get your locks maintained?
I try to be good enough to go to a professional to get my locks maintained. So I've learned to wear my hair in style. So you'll see like it's styled now, and I'll leave it in a style. When I'm ready to wash, I'll wash it myself, and then my roots are back in their untwisted state, and I will kind of palm roll it myself and maybe style it. I learned to put it on rods and curl it myself and make it bouncy and full, and so
swing.
And so I've learned to do it myself if I need to. I definitely like wearing it in a style because it lasts longer.
What made you choose traditional locks versus like micro locks or sister locks?
Again, this was a research piece.
Yes.
I spent a lot of time during COVID looking at what I liked and what sizing I liked, and I'm a bit on the impatient side. So to sit down and get a retie, my sister, I have a very good friend. She's my best friend. She's had sister locks for 20 years probably. I saw when she started, and I saw like how she has to get it. I'm like, my patience is not going to afford me to sit out and do like that's not. And then I look at the fact that my hair is extremely thick.
Yeah.
Sister lock, eventually it was I just studied a lot. I studied a lot of the journey. So I went with a size that I thought, and I consulted with a loctician, a couple of them, and I looked at what they did. And so the person that I chose to start my hair was very knowledgeable, and decided I wanted to do.
Yeah, it's interesting how much time and effort and money we put into our hair. And it's part of the liberation. Yeah, it's
exactly.
I'm team DIY because I don't have patience either. But if I'm at home and I put on a movie at night and, I can just do it myself. But I studied the other way, how to do it myself, and then practice a lot.
Yeah.
And I've started 3 people's heads already.
Wow.
But I grew up, we didn't have a lot of money to get out. We never got our hair done professionally, except for one time for communion. So me and my sisters were always very DIY because that was our only outlet to try to keep up. Any last thoughts you have?
See, I just wanted to share again that this is a topic that really does resonate with a lot of people. And it's something that we don't always talk about in open forum and public forum. I mean, we as Black men, women of color, professionals, we may have this conversation, but in a public setting, we don't always address this because I mean, let's face it, it doesn't really impact everyone, it impacts us. And so I really think that it's a really good conversation to have. I will say that a lot of wearing your hair or whatever your clothing is to really feel confident in it. And I've noticed that when I didn't feel confident in what I was doing or how I was wearing my hair, what I was wearing, it showed. And so when I married, how I viewed myself as beautiful, what I wanted to do with my hair, the confidence was there. I wore my hair, and I feel like you're going to respect me for the professional that I am, and you're going to respect me in the casing, right? In the presentation part of myself. And it just kind of, it all comes together. So whether it's your afro or your sew-in or your wig, wigs are popular now. I've never worn a wig per se. Like, if you have the confidence, if that's how you view yourself as beautiful, then it really does come through in how you present yourself.